Hi, Rich. I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Thanks so much for taking
Hello.
the time. How are you doing
All
today?
right. I'm all good.
To kick us off, for people who don't know anything about Kneecap, what can they expect when they watch your film?
It's sex, drugs, and hip hop all wrapped in a surprisingly poignant package.
And maybe you can sort of take us back to the beginning of when this all started for you. I believe it was when you were actually watching one of their gigs back in 2019. Perhaps the idea first occurred to you of making the film. I know you went on to also make one of their music videos. But maybe in your own words, you can tell us how it all came about.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I just moved to Belfast, went out, I just had my second child about, I think, 4 or 5 days before, and then I think I needed to get away from some crime for a bit and went for a pint, and the pub said they got some Irish hip hop playing downstairs, and in I wandered, and I suppose in a weird way, sort of, life can kind of throw those moments at you where those sliding doors moments and walking in and seeing Kneecap, I was like, oh wow, like, it just really, as a big hip hop fan, I just was like, yeah, I really like this. But as much as what they were doing on stage, I felt they were so raw and charismatic and clearly, didn't give a toss what anyone thought they were going to be political and they were going to be controversial and didn't care what anyone thought about it. There was, hundreds of young people there who were rapping every word that they were rapping back in Irish, and I was like, I didn't really realize at the time there was this young, vibrant community of Irish speakers, and to me, so if I don't know that, then I live in Belfast, then. There must be millions of people who don't. I think as a filmmaker, when you find a precinct that feels unexplored, you've got the foundation of a story.
I guess on the face of it, it's a biopic, but it feels like so much more than that, or it sort of resists easy labeling in that straightforward sense. There's something about the form of it that really seems to capture the blistering originality of the group and their music, and even the fact that they're playing, versions of themselves. So, what was your starting point in how you wanted to tell their story?
Well, I was very lucky in the sense of music is often something which is almost an afterthought in filmmaking. Sometimes you start thinking about what tracks you want to put down and the score very late in the process. But when you're making a band film, the music you have right up front, and you kind of know that. Well, hang on, Kneecap, it's punky, it's rebellious, it's noisy, anarchic. And so all that spirit was instantly, you go, well, the film needs to reflect that. And in a way that was very creatively freeing because nothing felt off limits in terms of, yeah, like, so you let's throw in a random claymation scene. Yeah, do a scene fast forward through it. Let's do, all these crazy shots. And it was kind of like, it just felt like nothing would really feel out of place. And yeah, well, I'm very happy we managed to sort of bottle that spirit of Kneecap up. And obviously, having them playing themselves was a big risk, but also they have such great chemistry between them. They're best friends. And I think often, you can have the best three actors in the world and put them in a room together and go, now pretend to be best friends, and it might not work. Do you know what I mean? It's like chemistry is one of those weird things. It's hard to make, just kind of invent. And so to have them playing themselves and having the relationship they do, I think really just fizzes off the screen and was something that we kind of have built in.
I guess in terms of their acting ability, maybe you had some trepidation, like, how is this going to come off? How are they going to act, in front of the camera? But I mean, it's absolutely incredible what they achieve. Were you even kind of taken aback at how good they were acting,
Well,
considering it's not their background?
it was one of those things where you're pitching the film and you get, oh, we love the script, but can they act? And my answer would always invariably be, oh, absolutely they can act. They're brilliant actors. And I had no idea. I just kind of was, you pretty much say anything to try and get your film funded. And it was only when we were about 6 months out and the film was particularly green lit, basically, that I actually got them in a room and was like, okay, yeah, they can't really act, and that's a big problem, right? And it wasn't even a matter they couldn't act; it was a matter that they didn't have the toolbox, and the acting for camera is very different from performing on stage, and acting is one of those things that is actually the opposite of what a lot of people think. It's about listening rather than it is talking. It's about reacting rather than acting, and being in that moment, and the person opposite you really being present for what they're saying. And once they kind of understood that, it sort of flowed from there. It was like moths to butterflies. And, as part of that whole thing, when you've got great actors opposite it, acting opposite you, it gives you great things to react to. So, they were doing very well working with me, on the script. But, when you put in front of Michael Fassbender or Simone Kirby or Josie Walker, it's like, suddenly they're opposite people who are giving a huge amount in their performance for them to bounce off of, and they really grasp that. And I think, one of the things that I'm most proud of them for, is that, people are going to assume it might be a bit hammy and kind of a bit cheesy or something, them acting themselves, but they just put in fantastic performances, and it confuses a lot of people in a really fun way, because they can't work out whether this is the real band or they're actors playing themselves until sort of the credits roll. And it wasn't something that we did on purpose, really. Like, I just assumed that everyone would know who Kneecap were when they walk into the film, because I know who Kneecap were. But it makes absolute sense, is that they're not a global band. They're not Taylor Swift, right? So there's most people going to the cinema having no idea they're a real band. And then at the end, they're just blown away when they find that out. They're like, oh, amazing. And it just makes, someone once told me the only thing that really matters in a film is the beginning and the end. And so we've got a pretty cool beginning, and then we've got a pretty cool end. So I think I did my job there.
Absolutely. And coming to these other actors, mentioning there, particularly Michael Fassbender, I mean, I guess, he's got such a draw on his own, and, him taking on this character as well. I was, I guess, harking back to when he was in Hunger, sort of working in this similar sort of subject area. And there's some really pivotal scenes, particularly between his character and Dolores. What was it like getting him on board and working with him alongside the band?
It's not a film that ultimately he needed to do and take the risk on, and it certainly was a risky film to get involved in, given how controversial there are. But he, I think he really enjoyed playing Bobby Sands in Hunger, Steve McQueen's Hunger. I think that maybe is the role that he most enjoyed ever playing and most connected with him. And I think he saw in the character he plays in Kneecap, Arlo, a kind of a guy who maybe could have been in a cell next to Bobby Sands, maybe didn't go on the hunger strike, but was a guy who survived and went out. And I think that part of potentially Arlo's motivation is that he feels guilty that he didn't make the ultimate sacrifice, and all of his behavior, he becomes a zealot, and he ends up sacrificing his family and all of those things at the altar of trying to prove that he is a proper Republican and dedicated to the cause. And I think that connected with him. That was something that we discussed quite a lot. And I think when you have someone like Michael, who's just such a controlled at his performance, is just he really is so in control of what he does, and is an editor's dream. And for me, as a filmmaker doing his first narrative feature, to be standing there and looking down your monitor and seeing Michael Fassbender there, you're like, is this even real? Like, do you know what I mean? It's but he gave a huge amount to all of us. He helped me a lot. He helped the band a lot, and even everyone bought the right game. Even the catering got better. Do you know what I mean?
And, coming to sort of the political aspect of it, it is very much there, both in the backdrop, both in, seeing what the band is doing as a political act, the fact of singing in Irish and the subjects that they sing about. But then there's often moments where it is quite tongue in cheek as well. Even the opening saying, "Oh, this is how every movie about Belfast opens." So to what extent do you see it as a political film?
I think it's a very political film, but without trying to necessarily force it down people's throats. I think that we've tried to find that balance where the politics flows through it in an easy manner, right? And Kneecap, a very political act, but some of the and that can be overtly through some of the things that they say that are controversial. But I think just generally the existence of a band choosing to rap through a minority language is itself a political act. I think for them to choose to live their lives, they were born in what is legally, illegally the United Kingdom, and they live their life through another language than the official language of that country. And I think that is a political act. You can't escape that. I think that people feel that watching the film, and no one wants to be preached to in a film. It's an entertainment product, but we wanted to try and get the politics in there, and a history lesson. Because I think that one thing that a lot of people in the UK are ignorant of the history of Ireland and British involvement in the imperialism there, and I was one of them. I mean, I went to school, I did a chapter in a book about Irish history, and that was kind of all I knew until I met a woman who was from there, and ended up becoming my wife. And one of those things where you're in Ireland one day and you kind of go, "Oh, we're the bad guys, aren't we?" And you suddenly realise, like, "Oh yeah, no, we are the bad guys here." And that was quite a political awakening for me. And I've very much been welcomed in Belfast, and it's a city that and people that are very close to my heart, and I'm very happy that I've made a film that they feel reflects their community in an honest and fun way that reflects the dark humour of the place. Because there's no darker humour than a Belfast humour, which I like a lot.
And I think, yeah, that definitely comes through as well in the humour, and maybe that's what it's meant about, it kind of coming off quite playful at moments while also having quite kind of inspirational and profound messages, when they sort of talk about intergenerational trauma, or, change dropping like a filthy bass line, and or each time you speak the Irish language, it's like a bullet. So it's all there with sort of without it sounding too earnest, too serious. And I guess maybe there is a bit of disillusionment these days about being able to make changes or being able to rebel against the system. And this is kind of suggesting actually we do still have that ability, and even sort of the creative industries and things like music can be a force for good and a force for change.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and we've been very gratified traveling around the world with the film for like 10 years now. But no, 7 or 8 months we've sort of been traveling around, and you speak to people after screenings from all sorts of cultures and backgrounds, and we've managed to make a film that is very specifically about the Irish language and that struggle, but it resonates with people from across the world, and reflects their relationship with their mother tongues and their relationship with their indigenous culture and colonialism. I'm really proud that it's managed to inspire people to look at that relationship they have, and reassess it. And the world is not going to be a better place if we move towards a homogeneous, monolingual, sort of English first world, because when a language dies, what goes with it is a history and a culture. And as humanity, it's very important that we keep the kind of the string attached to that, and don't lose sight of what's gone before us and what's got us to where we are.
And in the making of it, I mean, there's some absolutely epic scenes, just sort of like got this really kind of chaotic, kinetic energy to it. Did you have a favorite moment, a favorite scene, or did anything at any point?
Yeah, I think for me, my favourite scene is the Orange Order chasing Liam Ogre across the bridge, because that bridge is the bridge that I would walk to that connects my house to where the band lived. And so I've made that journey many, many times. And very early on, I was like, this bridge, this is the bridge I want to do this scene on. And it kind of had a kind of a Lawrence of Arabia type feel to it, that I was like, oh, I think we underneath that bridge is one of the most fervent loyalist estates. And it was like, we were told there's no way we could film there. Like, it's just, we'd get murdered if we tried filming there. And then in the end, we managed to convince the council to let us film from like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, when I think the thinking was most of the Neanderthals under the bridge would be asleep, hungover, and wouldn't be too much up for a punch up. So we got away with it, and then filming it. Just there's a bird which sort of flies perfectly across the screen at just the perfect moment, and like if they gave Oscars to animals for the performance, that bird would be a nailed on Oscar winner for that flight perfectly across my frame. And I just punched the air and was just like, oh, the filmmaking gods looking down on me today.
And what has it meant for the band, I guess, to have this opportunity to work with you on this film? And then, you know, even in the aftermath of it, you know, having a Sundance London, you know, what's it meant for their visibility as a band too?
Well, we often joke, you know, who's created who? Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I like to say, well, lads, I've made you, and they're like, no, we fucking made you. They were on a great trajectory anyway. It was a big gamble, you know, 5-6 years ago when they were a local band to sort of go all in the manner that I did on making this film, because a lot of local bands, they plateau, you know, they don't get any better, or they break up. That happens, you know, or you know, they decide they need to go and get a real job because they're not making any money. There's all sorts of things that happen to bands while they don't become, you know, big stars. And luckily, Kneecap just kept getting better, just kept growing. And, you know, when I was flying to Los Angeles about 3 weeks ago with the lads to go and do the US press tour, and I was sitting on the plane and I looked at my phone. Like, there's a WhatsApp group that we have that I set up back in 2019 when we met. To sort of talk about the film and plan it. And I called that group jokingly, Kneecap Goes to Hollywood. And there we were on our way to Hollywood. And it was like, you know, none of us expected that in our wildest dreams that their debut album would be coming out the same summer as the film. And I don't think there's ever been a band that's had that sort of momentum behind them. We never expected that that it would all happen. And it just feels like there's a real rocket booster under all things Kneecap. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they were playing the main stage at Glastonbury in a couple of years, if they weren't sort of a global kind of band, and hopefully they'll still answer my calls then.
I know this was your feature debut, but you've worked on other things before, One Rogue Reporter, the short films. What's going to be next after this, and what are you going to take away from the experience?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been you know, for me, it's been pretty transformative. You know, suddenly you're getting offered to do, you know, projects, and you know, it's you kind of, you know, people are approaching you about doing stuff, and suddenly you find yourself saying no to things that you would have literally bitten both of your arms and legs off to even, you know, to do a year ago, right? And yeah, I've got a couple of things that I'm working on. I want to, you know, I live in Ireland. I want to keep telling Irish stories. I've not got a huge desire to move to Hollywood and sort of do all that sort of stuff. I'm going to take a little bit of time to reflect, and it's been it's been quite the road getting here. And you know, writing is my happy place as well. And it's like I'm looking forward to kind of being back in a room on my own, staring at a wall, trying to work on another script. That's something that is hopefully around the corner now, and I can get my head back into that place. Because it's funny, filmmaking is such a long process and a complicated process, and as much about people management as it is about creativity. And I always enjoy that stage when you've got a blank piece of paper in front of you and everything's possible. Everything is possible. There's no limitations at that point. It's like you can write anything you can think of, and there's no practical considerations about cost and logistics and all those sort of things. And yeah, so that's where I'm in a month or two. That's where you'll find me.
Thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and huge congratulations on the film. I just had so much fun watching it. It was so brilliant.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Enjoy the release this week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. See you later.
Great to chat to you. Thanks.